Welcome, and thank you for attending this week's live Thursdays at noon community event. Today, we once again meet the candidates in this federal election. But first, we recognize that we are on the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe peoples in the Williams and Huron-Robinson Treaties area. We recognize the long history of First Nations and Métis people on this land and show respect to them today. We acknowledge our neighbors, the Watau Mohawks, and the First Nations of Moose Deer Point, Shawanaga, Wasauksing, Magnetawan, Henvey Inlet, Nipissing, and Doquis. Today, we talk about each candidate's plan for local business recovery and their answers to our burgeoning housing crisis. We have incumbent Scott Aitchison for the Conservatives, Heather Hay for the NDP, Mark Mantha for the Green Party, Jim Toll for PPC, and with yet again no response from the Liberal candidate or her team, is there anybody on the call from Giovanni Nikoyashakai's team? No. Okay, so we still have radio silence from the Liberal Party in this election. Zero answers to any questions from the newspapers of record in all of Parry Sound-Muskoka. So there we go. Our first question today is, what is your plan to help local businesses and the Parry Sound-Muskoka economy in their post-COVID recovery? Heather, would you like to start off?
I'd be delighted. You can hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
All right. So I'd like to start by saying it was the NDP that pushed for the 75% instead of the 10% wage subsidy that was originally provided or offered by the Trudeau government to support small businesses in surviving the pandemic, and also raise the CERB up to the $2,000 level instead of the $1,000 level originally proposed. And part of the NDP plan would be to ensure that those subsidies stay in place until the pandemic is over. And we would also provide a hiring bonus by paying the employer section of the CPP and EI, and also providing a hard cap on the credit card fees that our local merchants are getting gouged by. So those are some of the, and the key piece is that the NDP would make the ultra-rich pay, the people who have benefited from the pandemic, making sure that they pay their fair share, since ordinary Canadians have covered paid the biggest price so far.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you for that, Heather. Scott Aitchison, do we have you there? Scott on the call. So Scott, what is your plan to help support local businesses and the Parry Sound-Muskoka economy in their post-COVID recovery?
Thank you, Pamela. And sorry I couldn't get on last time. It was technical difficulties. I'd like to think that I'm a little more technically savvy than I am sometimes. But it's great to be here today, and thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for the question. It's a big part of our plan, actually, is to get this country moving again and get businesses operating on all cylinders. And of course, one of the biggest challenges businesses face in Parry Sound-Muskoka, the ones that I talk to, is they can't find employees. They can't find people to work. And of course, a big part of the reason for that, there's a lot of reasons, but, the fact that the CERB continues to exist, that will be coming to an end, and people will be looking for work again, and once we get past COVID. But there's also, of course, major issues around housing, and it continues to get worse in our area, and we have a lot of work to do there too. But specifically, we're going to get to housing, I think, in the next question. So I'll start with some of the specific programs that we have in mind for business. And there's a number of them, ranging from the renovating or upgrading Main Street, supporting small business with loans and tax credits, that kind of thing. I know a lot of businesses aren't interested in more loans, but that's just one of the tools. Just announced by our party actually is a tax credit specifically targeted at the tourism sector, which of course is a big issue in our area and a big part of the economy. But it would be a tax credit. I might need to read it to get the specific numbers if you bear with me for a second. I have to wear reading glasses now, I apologize. But that the hospitality and tourism sectors will provide, we would provide a 50% rebate for food and non-alcoholic drinks purchased for dine-in from Monday to Wednesday for 1 month. So they calculate that will pump about $1 billion into the sector. And of course, that's a huge sector for us. And again, we need to get people to work in some of these places too. So just a couple of quick things there, guaranteeing 1 million jobs and working, with the provinces to make sure that we're getting the economy open and running and firing back to full steam ahead.
Okay.
Can I make one more quick point?
Absolutely.
I know that I should point out that Heather is correct that the NDP did in fact work with the Conservatives actually to convince the Trudeau Liberals to increase the wage subsidy from 10% to 75%. But I was in the room, so it's not quite accurate for her to suggest that it was just the NDP. In fact, it was the Conservatives and the NDP working together to convince the government that the wage subsidy at 10% was just not going to work. So nice little example of people working together in Parliament. Thanks.
Which is something we absolutely love to see and support whenever we do see it. Heather, do you have any response to that?
He was in the room. I wasn't. I'll trust him.
Okay, thank you. So next up, we have Mark Mantha with us for the Green Party. Mark, what is your response to our question today? What is your plan to help support local businesses and the Parry Sound-Muskoka economy in their post-COVID recovery? Not that we're post-COVID. We should say sustainability in the meantime as well. Oh, Mark, I don't think you have your speaker on or your volume on.
There we go. Yeah, that's exactly the point, is that we do need to start now because businesses can no longer navigate the inconsistent policies. They need assurances and support to get them through an unpredictable pandemic. And they need more than a suggested HST tax break to survive. And in mitigating the climate crisis, this stimulates prosperity by shifting resources that make the climate crisis worse to programs that improve the quality of life across Canada and Indigenous communities. So this addresses all the silo issues and acknowledging that they're all interconnected. And going into question 2, I'll describe more of that as well, affecting mental health, housing, sustainable farming and food security, well-paying jobs, stable jobs in retrofitting homes, commercial buildings, institutions, fast, reliable electric transportation. And my responsibility as MP is also to guide you to programs that are available to you right now, like up to $600 for a home evaluation and expert advice so you can start to plan your retrofits, and up to $5,000 in total to help you make retrofits to your home. And this year, an interest-free loan program for up to $40,000 to help complete those home retrofits. So there is a lot of potential to stimulate business and enterprise nationally and in all communities.
Okay, all right, thank you for that. Jim Toll is with us today for the PPC. Hi, Jim.
Hi.
What is your plan and your party's plan to stimulate, to support small business in Parry Sound-Muskoka during and post-pandemic?
Well, post-pandemic, we want to reduce corporate taxes, eliminate corporate subsidies, and also lower personal taxes so that businesses have more money to spend on expansion and hiring more staff, and consumers have more money in the pocket to spend. So that's where we're coming from. We believe in smaller government, less government intrusion into our lives. Now, also too, we got to get the economy open here in this area as soon as possible. We still have lockdowns, and if There's no real need for lockdowns, in my opinion, right now, because we use hand sanitizer, we use masks to get into any public building. If those measures work, then there's no need for a lockdown. People have been vaccinated. We have to get people back working. We have to come to an end with the CERB benefits. I've been finding when I travel through the riding that go into, say, restaurants or even some contractors I know, they're having a hard time getting staff to work. And when I asked, I always get the same answer: they can't compete with the CERB benefits. So we need to get things back to normal as soon as possible. Again, reduce corporate taxes, reduce personal taxes, allow for expansion of businesses and hiring more people.
Jim, can I ask you, if you're going to lower both corporate taxes and personal taxes, how will you fund government?
Well, let's just reduce government meddling in the economy. So there are fewer bureaucrats, fewer government programs. That's how we're going to be doing it, reducing the size of government.
Okay.
Okay.
So just asking one more time so that I'm being completely fair to the Liberal Party in case they're here. Is there anybody on this call from the Liberal Party of Canada? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Nobody. Okay. So next question. For some reason. Okay, let's mute that. Okay, our next question is, how will your party tackle Canada's housing crisis? How will you use your position, if you're voted in, to alleviate the crisis specifically in Parry Sound-Muskoka? And we know that we were in crisis before the COVID bubble. And now we've got the COVID real estate bump, so we're in worse shape than ever. There's no housing. And what is your plan? Can you start us off again, Heather?
Certainly. Thank you for the question. The NDP's main plan is to invest in building 500,000 safe, affordable homes. And one of the issues that I'd like to advocate for locally is many of the federal programs require matching funds from the municipalities. And that puts smaller communities like ours that don't have the bigger budgets at a disadvantage. So I would like to advocate for interest-free loans so that smaller rural communities can invest in housing locally. We've got the situation here in Muskoka where a cottage is being, over $80 million is being spent on building one cottage. And a woman fleeing violence is told the shelter's full and here's some money to go buy a tent by the district. So the housing crisis is really critical for the more vulnerable members of our community, and the NDP's committed to providing supports for communities to invest in safe, affordable housing.
Okay, thank you, Heather. Scott, housing.
Thanks, Pamela. This is probably the biggest issue for me that convinced me to leave the best job in the world, being mayor of Huntsville, and run federally, actually, because of course, at the municipal level, we were doing a lot of different things, both the district and the town, to try to break the logjam and get more, particularly affordable rental units built in the community. And we did everything from passing policies that would waive building permit fees and, all the municipal fees. We were even working on a program that would actually waive taxes even for up to 10 years potentially. We gave land away. We did a lot of different things. And what was always missing in that mix, whether it was the town or the district, and of course the district is the agency in Muskoka, the Muskoka side of the riding. It's the district services board on the Parry Sound side of the riding. But they need a partner with money, and oftentimes they need the CMHC to backstop the mortgage that the building may need as well. And the province has been at the table in a lot of circumstances. They haven't invested enough, frankly, either. But the federal government over the last 6 years has promised billions, literally billions and billions of dollars. They've spent around half of it, and yet they continue to pat themselves on the back and saying, look at how much we care about housing, which is obscene because they have pandered to people about hope and to help people that are in crisis and suffering in this country and have never really lived up to all the hype. They've helped people in cities and they've ignored rural Canada. So this is one of those issues that drives that direction. I think that Sergey needs to mute himself. There we go.
Yes, we'll wait for questions until after the candidates.
This is one of those issues, though. When I got to Ottawa 2 years ago, I immediately went to work trying to work with Adam Vaughan, who was the parliamentary secretary in the government responsible for the Liberals' national housing strategy. And we worked specifically, we'll talk about the Bala Legion project as one example, 128 units, 1 and 2 bedroom units that the Legion was fully on board with, the community was fully on board with, the township of Muskoka Lakes got it rezoned and ready to go right away, the district was on board, even the province was on board. Dennis Mills, former Liberal member of Parliament, talking to his friends in Ottawa, one of which even worked as an intern in his office 15 years ago, all he got was pandering. This is a great project. And it's, we got to find a way to make this work. And 6 years later, and then 2 years after, I was doing the exact same thing, trying to get them to, help us move the logjam, which was some minor issues with the rules at CMHC. And here we are. It's still nowhere near started. So, my level of frustration with the Liberal government that promises the world and never delivers, it's not just about being frustrated about a bad piece of policy. Lives hang in the balance on this issue, and we cannot wait any longer. And so I'm actually really quite proud of the Conservative platform, which reflects many of the things that I've been talking to our leadership about and our platform policy people about, things that I knew would work and I saw work very well in my municipal role. And a big one is incentivizing the private sector to get more affordable rentals built with things called like a capital subsidy, for example, to make the cost of building the unit viable to rent basically at a lower price. And so they sign an agreement for 20 years that it's always at an affordable rental rate. The beauty of incentivizing the private sector to do this is that it gets done faster. It's just the way it is. Government still needs to be involved, but the private sector gets it built faster. Plus, it also generates property tax revenue for the struggling municipality that needs to provide services to the people that live in those units. So that's a big part of it. We commit to 1 million residential units over the next 3 years, and we'll do that by working with local governments, community organizations like the Bala Legion. South Muskoka Community Living just gave up on their project because the federal government has just played games. Working with the provinces and making sure that what money we spend is targeted and in the right place at the right time, and working with the people on the ground that know what the actual needs are. The other one is, I didn't realize this, but the federal government owns over 37,000 buildings. And we've committed to making a minimum of 15% of those buildings available to be changed into residential units. I can see this working really well in some of the larger centers where the federal government probably owns a lot more buildings and it's probably cheaper to renovate a building than build a new one. But that's a good example. And that specifically will target the affordable rental market. But there's also a lot of policies in our platform specifically geared to dealing with the outrageous cost of housing in general and young people trying to buy their first home and get into the market. It's really hard for people to do that because, of course, the prices keep skyrocketing. And one of the probably decidedly unconservative things that we've chosen to do is to completely ban foreign purchases of housing for 2 years to cool off the market a little bit so that we can get things regulated again. And so just a couple of examples. I could go on and on and on, but I'm sure everybody's getting tired of listening to me and would like to hear others. So if there are questions, I'll be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Sergey, is your question about housing? If not, we'll wait till the middle section.
No, it's not about housing. No.
Okay, so we'll come back to you. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so Mark Mantha, Green Party. What would your party do about the housing crisis and to help Parry Sound-Muskoka specifically?
Well, Scott is committed to adding 1 million new homes across Canada, and that's a good start. And Heather as well at 500,000. But you all need to know that even before the pandemic, 1.6 million Canadians lived in unsuitable, inadequate, or unaffordable housing, and an estimated 2.4 million households have experienced core housing need in 2020. We'll redefine affordable housing using a better updated formula that accounts for regional variations across the country and refocus the core mandate of the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation, CMHC, on supporting the development of affordable non-market and cooperative housing. With many housing markets being so overvalued and home ownership rates among the highest in the world, individual home ownership should not be the preoccupation of a public service housing agency or a national housing strategy. Change in legislation that prevents Indigenous organizations from accessing financing through CMHC to invest in self-determined housing needs and to allocate funding towards urban Indigenous housing providers. Establish a for Indigenous, by Indigenous housing support program for all off-reserve and urban Indigenous communities and include off-reserve status and non-status Indigenous peoples as well. The role of municipalities is they need support in a big way because municipalities across Canada receive only 10.8% of all the taxes collected within their boundaries, and any decisions that they make can be overturned by provincial and territorial governments. So the Green Party of Canada supports a greater tax share of tax revenues for municipalities and greater decision-making powers. There are many opportunities for economic development and improving our quality of life in Parry Sound and Muskoka.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you for that. Jim Toll for the PPC. What would your party do about the housing crisis in Parry Sound-Muskoka?
Okay, now overall, one of the big causes of the housing crisis, obviously we got a discrepancy between supply and demand. The demand for housing is far greater than the supply available. And one of the causes in our view is that because of mass immigration. So we're taking about 350,000 new immigrants per year when we already have a housing crisis already. And it's going to be about 400,000 planned by the Liberals. So we want to reduce it to 100,000, 100 to 150,000 per year. That'll help cool down the market, and we could focus more on it'd be easier for residents here in this country already in this area to find housing. Also, we're going to get out of building subsidized housing, allow private developers to lead the way in housing, and we're also going to work with the provinces to curb speculation and money laundering by foreign non-residents in the housing market and land market. A lot of the immigrants that come here, mass immigration is not thought out properly. Come to the two main cities like Toronto and say Vancouver, and that's going to put pressure on surrounding areas as well. So that's our plan. So again, less government involvement and allow the private sector to have the incentive to build and end the speculation. All right?
Okay. Thank you, Jim.
Yeah.
I'm excited and thrilled to see that we have Giovanni on our call. Hi, welcome. Oh, you just see the top of you. Hello.
I don't think they've connected sound.
Yeah, let me. Can we hear you, Giovanni?
Yes, I hear you. And sorry for, for not being able to respond to your messages because I just noticed today.
Oh, well, welcome. We're
Yeah,
thrilled to have you on the call.
thank you.
To begin, could you introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Giovanni Nikoishakie. I'm a mother and a teacher, and I was born in Burundi and came to Canada very young. I went to the university here. I have a master's degree from McMaster University, and I'm a community servant too because I really stick on my communities. Right now, I'm an ambassador for the Angel Foundation for Learning for 12 years. It's a charity organization within the Ministry of Education. So briefly, it's that. But there are so many other things. Politically speaking, I've been the president of my riding association in Toronto, and I am the representative of Toronto Centre within the National Women Liberal Commission. So briefly, it's that.
Okay, so Giovanni, what is your connection to Parry Sound-Muskoka?
Could you repeat, please?
What is your connection to Parry Sound-Muskoka?
Oh, I used to come here every summer with my family friend who owns a cottage here, and they would stay for a month or even more. And that's how I know this area. And I really, really like people in this community. I think that they are very lovely. I love them.
Okay. So we have two questions today. The first is, what is your plan to support local businesses and the Parry Sound-Muskoka economy through and post-pandemic?
Yeah, I know that the Liberal government has been investing a lot through the subsidy, programs that they started even before the pandemic, and we've done a lot during the pandemic, and we are still doing that because we are aware that many people cannot operate, or some other people lost their jobs. But also when I'm canvassing now, I'm learning on the doorstep of people here in this community that that lady whose name is Peggy, who told me that she's running a mid-sized business and she cannot now have workers. So that's a big issue, but an issue that has been created by the unaffordability of housing, because people apply for jobs, they want to work, but they don't have where to live. So that's a big issue that affects many other areas of our life. So what I will do if I get elected on the 21st, I will be negotiating that budget that has been allocated to the housing programs. And at the same time, I will be communicating with the people I've met here, right here in Parry Sound-Muskoka, who are, trying to keep working as businessmen. And some of them work in the construction area. So I will start right away because this issue is really a big one.
Okay,
So,
and that's our second question today, is what would you do to alleviate the housing crisis in Parry Sound-Muskoka? So does that answer that?
But somehow, because the housing issue is affecting the other areas like the economy, because if a business close, then people are not going to work, and the housing is really disturbing everything, because workers want to work and the businessmen want to operate, but no one can do much because they are not able to hire because people don't have where to live. And that issue, I'm learning it from many people on their doorstep.
Okay, thank you, Giovanni. So let's go. We have 15 minutes left. Let's go to our participants, not participants, the other folks on the call, to see about what their questions are. And Sergey, you had I'm sorry, just one second. Mark, did you have a response to what Giovanni said?
No, actually, what I wanted to do was, and if you agree, and if the other candidates agree, to give Scott Aitchison an opportunity to respond to the 2 questions that we had last week.
Oh, you know, I think that that's a great idea, Mark, and I was hoping that both Scott and Giovanni could speak to those questions, but I thought I would do it at the end so that folks who can stay, and if both candidates do have availability. So great idea, and we'll just put a pin in it for about 15 minutes. So questions, Sergey.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, my question is to Mr. Aitchison. And I've been conservative for all my life, and I voted for conservatives. But I came to the point when I'm in doubt, like if I should to give Scott my vote, because like conservative platform is identical to liberal, and if he could kind of sell me his program, why I should keep voting for conservative if conservative and liberal platform are basically the same.
Scott, do you have a response?
Yeah, happy to speak to that. I would say that it's not the same as the liberal platform. I can see how you might see some similarities, though. Obviously, both platforms are, addressing some of the pressing issues that we're facing today. I frankly was a little surprised to see that one of our commitments was to balance the budget over 10 years. I actually think it can be done sooner than that. And I think that, in fact, it probably will be done sooner than that, just because of the very focused investments that we're talking about making in business and getting business, up and running again. I guess what I would also say is that, I think probably the biggest difference between the conservatives this time and the liberals is I think that when it comes to an example like housing, like we were just talking about, the liberal government promises billions of dollars and they're going to spend all this money. They're not as interested in incentivizing the private sector, as an example. Whereas our plan actually will deliver results that they didn't deliver because we're not afraid to partner with private sector interests. And that's I think a big distinction. The liberal platform is almost left of the NDP right now, which should shock you all because that's a road to bankruptcy and we can't afford it. I think that we will in fact balance the budget sooner, actually deliver on the promises that we've made, and actually solve these problems that exist. Housing is the foundation of it all. Nobody can hope to begin to build a life or grow and have a job or go to school or do whatever they need to do to build their life without a safe place to sleep at night. It has to start there. And so, just promising and throwing billions around but not actually getting it done, that's the distinction between the liberals and the conservatives. We're actually going to get it done. We're going to incentivize business. We're going to get out of their way. We're going to reduce red tape. We're going to come up with practical solutions that actually get out of people's way.
Okay, thank you for that, Scott. It feels like it would be fair to let Giovanni respond to what Scott just said. Do you have anything to say on that, Giovanni?
Yeah, thank you for giving me the chance to express myself on that. First of all, I think that the liberal platform is very different from the conservative one. Because the liberal platform contains concrete and really clear actions that show how we will do to protect businesses and to develop new ones. Even in the first answer, I told you that everything is linked to each other. The lack of housing is affecting the private area. And so I said that we will promote, both of them will build houses so that people can work and stay. Pardon me?
Sorry about that. You started, something happened with the sound.
Yeah. And so for me, I really read the conservative platform. it doesn't contain anything that shows exactly how they will be doing it. And also, when we know that, the housing is, it can affect many important areas like, the economy and also the health, because if people don't have where to sleep, where to rest, obviously there is no life. And so we are suggesting, and we've been doing this to support more workers, more businesses, and at the same time investing in the housing that is affordable. So that's what I will be doing starting the 21st if I get elected. Actually, I know that the Conservatives don't have a plan that they can really explain fully to Canadians about what they will do exactly, when we know that the Liberal government, not only they managed the economy and the social life of Canadians, but they also experienced the worst of a pandemic. We have never lived a pandemic before, but they could manage to bring us to today. And Canada didn't lose as many people as the United States and and Italy. So for me, Canadians should understand that we are capable of continuing and even improving many things.
Okay, thank you, Giovanni. I think that the Conservative plan and the Liberal plan, that both of your plans, NDP, Green, PPC, all of your plans are online. I hope if folks were to Google your party, they could see your plan. And I recommend that everybody do that rather than assume what you think a party may or may not be doing. Have an actual look at their plan. That would be my recommendation. Brownie, I see that you have your hand up. Karen's hand was up a little earlier. So I'm going to go to Karen first. Karen?
Hi. Yes, I do have a question about that. This is a very important issue for, I think all across Canada, we've been experiencing this for many years, as been indicated by some of the candidates here. I think throwing it down to the municipalities is really, it's inappropriate. They have a borrowing limitation, and this is going to put a lot of pressure on taxpayers in specific ridings. Muskoka Parry Sound is a classic example. So I think throwing it down to the municipalities really is not appropriate. I also sort of wonder, it's not really the jurisdiction of the federal government. So, there's inflation, which and immigration, which there is a control of. Bank of Canada and inflated, and immigration, 400K by the Liberals is a year. That's like comparable to 2 New Brunswick populations in a year. So my question is first to the PPC, what would be the answer to the federal's influence as far as CMHC, because that is a huge, powerful, bureaucratic institution that's been around forever and is so rich, but really in the results that everyone has been promising, including the Conservatives and Liberals, there's been no results. So Jim, would you mind answering a question in regards to the CMHC? What would be done? And as far as the Bank of Canada's inflation rate, what would the PPC party be proposing and doing that would in effect affect Parry Sound-Muskoka riding?
Thank you, Karen. Jim?
Yes, thank you for the question, Karen. The CMHC, Central Housing, Mortgage and Housing Corporation, yes, it is a mammoth government agency, and we believe it fuels the housing crisis, helps fuel it, instead of trying to cool it. All it's ever done is encourage Canadians to buy houses that they can't afford, and eventually they can accumulate massive amounts of debt. And eventually it comes down to the taxpayer. Remember, this is always not government money, it's taxpayers' money to pay off that debt. Okay, so in terms of inflation, we want to reduce the inflation target from 2% to 0%. that'll help cool off the market as well. The idea is not to build more social housing. It's to, we want to be in that business. We want to create market conditions that are going to encourage people to have more money in their pockets, businesses have more money to invest, and let the private sector lead the way, not government.
Okay, so CMHC, Heather, do you have any comment on that?
If you're looking at inflation, historically, a pandemic, they've done studies since the 1400s, and they've shown that historically inflation drops for about a decade. I think the average is about 13 years after any kind of a pandemic, historically, globally. And so this little blip in inflation is largely targeted or partly responsible because of there was a drop in prices with the original, when the pandemic originally kicked in. And so that's created a bit of a blip that we're experiencing. And I think I have to take issue with the lack, you know, this idea that we can put everything onto the private sector. I mean, the NDP is the only party that's actually going to fight for individuals and tax the ultra rich who have benefited from this pandemic. And I think that's the key to moving forward in a just recovery for Canada.
Thank you, Heather. Mark, do you have a comment on this one?
I feel I pretty much covered it. If there are any questions afterwards, anybody's welcome to reach out, but it is to refocus the core mandate of the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation on supporting the development of affordable and non-market and cooperative housing.
Okay, thank you. Scott, anything on CMHC?
CMHC is actually an incredible tool. I mean, it was a creation of C.D. Howe, and they built thousands of homes for 1 million returning vets and growing families, and the country was growing rapidly, and it was amazing. They opened up credit and did remarkable things. The problem with CMHC today is that, you know, it takes its marching orders from the government. I mean, there are lots of rules about how they backstop loans and where they, you know, grant money and that kind of thing. And so the problem is that the rules need to change, and the direction, the policy direction needs to change. And this is honestly the biggest problem. So much could be solved by making some minor changes to the mandate of the CMHC. I've met a lot of the folks that work at the CMHC, you know, representatives that work in this area to try to help, you know, solve some of these problems. And they're good people. They want to do good things, but their hands are tied by a government that, frankly, for the last 6 years has simply ignored rural Canada. The Liberal government has ignored rural Canada. They have committed billions of dollars to housing, and none of it's been announced in Parry Sound-Muskoka. They've announced lots in cities. And no disrespect to you, Giovanni, but the fact that they sent you here to run in this race, who's not even from here, you live in Toronto, for goodness sakes, it shows they don't care about rural Canada. Makes me livid that the Liberal government panders and they pretend to care, and then they just ignore rural Canada. It's disgusting. Simple changes CMHC could solve this problem.
Thank you, Scott. Giovanni, do you have response and do you have comment on CMHC? Okay, if Giovanni comes back, we'll give her the opportunity to respond to that. We're running out of time. Brownie, did you have a quick question before we? You're muted. Sorry, let me unmute you. Okay, do you have a quick question?
I just had a comment actually in regards to housing, if you allow me a couple of minutes. But I'll be honest with you folks, I've been following the housing market. I'm a homeowner for the last 30, 40 years. And I don't see any political party in this country fixing the housing market, okay? So you can attempt to put that out there all you wish. That is not going to do the trick, okay, in regards to votes. Now, if you want to put money in people's pockets to help pay for those mortgages, those overblown mortgages, then most definitely. Yeah, that'll do the trick. But I've been following this housing market since the '80s crash, when rates went to 16%, they dropped back down under 5. The housing market came back. In the 90s, oil took off to $100 a barrel. It stayed there for 4 and 5 years. People said it'll never come back down. The bubble burst. When it bursted then, I thought for sure the housing would follow. It did not. The reason it did not is because so much money laundering came into BC at start, and the real estate corporations and the banks are as guilty for bringing this money in and letting that money laundering go through the system in BC and drove the price of homes in there insane. And then when they brought out their laws saying you can't do this anymore because you don't live in the country, it trickled over to Ontario. And then it just shot up over here. That's the real facts. The real facts is the realty companies and the banks were guilty of money laundering with these money laundering companies, and no federal party stepped in and tried to stop it 20 years ago. That's what really happened. And now we're into this mess.
Okay,
We have so many immigrants coming into this country now. They have the money to pay for these homes, especially anybody from Hong Kong.
Okay, I'm going to stop you there, Brownie. Thank you. Thank you for your comment. All right. So next week, hopefully we will have the candidates with us again, and we'll be asking what you think each candidate is the 3 most important issues in the riding today. Scott and Giovanni, we are available to stay on if you want to respond to last week's questions. I realize you aren't planned for that, so if your schedule doesn't allow, we'll try to do it maybe next week. But Scott, what do you think? Do you have time to answer those 2 questions?
What were the questions?
So last
what has transpired in a week, so I don't know what they were.
It's a busy time. Last week we talked about 2 things. We talked about what is your party's plan to tackle climate change, and how will you advocate for Parry Sound-Muskoka's environment? And then our other question is, what is your plan to advance the implementation of the Truth and Reconciliation Committee's actions?
Yeah, happy to speak to both of those briefly. I realize everybody wants to get going. I would say that the first step, I guess, in trying to address the climate change issue is to have a climate change plan. And I'm pleased to say that we actually have one. It's been vetted by external third parties, and it's been described as a credible plan that will help us actually get us to our Paris climate targets, which right now is the standard. And I think that it's probably safe to say that, much like balancing the budget, I think that we are actually, the markets actually help, I think, get us towards reducing our carbon footprint, especially when government does get on board and work as well. And so I think our plan, while it's designed to get us to our Paris climate targets, you watch what's happening in money markets right now. Projects like expansions in the Alberta oil sands, for example, have really come to an end because money markets are not investing there anymore. They're investing in new green technology, and government coming along to help make some of those, incentivize some of those investments, actually helps us get moving faster. Things like electric cars, we're committing to, making sure that there are a lot more electric cars. We'll have to make some major investments in our electricity grid to make that viable too. So we've made a lot of commitments to get to our Paris climate targets. I think that we can actually exceed those just based on the momentum that it creates. But we have a plan. It's a credible plan, and it's a lot better than the last time I ran, which I'm very proud of. And then the issue of truth and reconciliation, it's one of the things that I actually was thrilled to work on as a member of the Heritage Committee. There's a couple of recommendations that we specifically worked on that it was great. One of the ones that what frustrated me was actually I can't remember which number the call to action was, but the call to action to actually make UNDRIP law in Canada. And so that was one of those examples where the Liberals brought forth a bill that was a framework for how we would actually go through the process. And at the committee, there was a lot of work done, and they heard from a number of various different First Nations groups and organizations who were actually a little frustrated with that legislation and felt there wasn't enough consultation. Even Perry Bellegarde, the now former Grand Chief, actually had some proposed amendments that thought would actually make it a better process. Conservatives at the committee actually proposed a number of those amendments, but of course the Liberals and the NDP blocked every single one of them. And we feel quite strongly that reconciliation is not just a buzzword, but it actually involves meaningful consultation and discussion, collaboration with First Nations people. And that was just a really clear example of, I think, Liberals and NDP at the committee and in the House of Commons just trying to push something through for the optics as opposed to actually engaging and working together. So what really that comes down to for me is, conversation matters more than optics, and we need to be engaging with First Nations every step of the way. We have a number of commitments in our actual platform document that speak specifically right now, of course, to a number of the unmarked graves that exist and we know still are out there that have not been found on a number of residential school sites, and committing money to not just finding all of those sites, but also making sure that proper recognition and those lives are honored, and that can be done. So, along with that, and a number of other very specific commitments to First Nations mental health, First Nations housing, engaging more First Nations in the economy, and in being engaged in national projects and regional projects, those kinds of things. Really, it's about engagement, about conversation and consultation and working together, as opposed to an Ottawa knows best top-down approach. Thanks.
Thank you very much for answering those questions, Scott. Giovanni, do we have you? Are you able to speak to your party's plan for climate change and for movement on the Truth and Reconciliation Commission actions? I saw that Giovanni seemed to be in a vehicle, so I think she might be having technical issues. So while we've lost her again, I'd like to give each candidate a couple of minutes to close up today. Thank you for your patience and staying with us. Heather, a couple of minutes to close up today.
This pandemic's been really hard on the most vulnerable members of our community, and I believe that I'm the candidate that best represents the vulnerable. I have the commitment and connection to community here that some of my colleagues don't. And the NDP has the leadership at a national level to actually take the stands and make the changes that we need to build back a better future for all Canadians. And so I hope to have your support on September 20th.
Thank you, Heather. Scott?
Yeah, I think I said all I really wanted to say. I'm passionate about the work I do. I have been, for 25 years on the front lines of the municipal world, and I am hell bent to make Ottawa work better than it does. So I want to keep fighting a good fight and make sure we actually solve problems for the people of Parry Sound-Muskoka as opposed to just scoring political points. So thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you, Scott. Mark.
Hi, yes, thank you. Throughout the course of my lifetime, and I being that kind of person who's boots on the ground and community engaged, that we've never really seen in the history of this riding, when you look at it long term, a real improvement in the quality of life throughout Muskoka. We're in a situation where the crisis just keeps getting worse. When we look at housing, and we've been losing 2 to 3, this was pre-pandemic, we've been losing 2 to 3 rental units for every one that's been added. So we've been constantly losing ground all of this time. Past behavior is always the best indicator of future behavior. So for all those years, it hasn't been happening for the riding of Parry Sound and Muskoka. it's really hard for a lot of people to believe that anything's going to change. So just think about the one thing that maybe you haven't considered before. And you can, some people are very loyal to their parties. Some people will, and we've tried this before, we've tried a protest vote, and it's just sort of that lack of continuity between changes in government that never seems to stick. So one government comes in and they have their programs, the other one comes in, might disassemble some of those and then put theirs in. So it's really hard to progress in that way. So there's an alternative.
Okay, thank you for that, Mark. Jim, do you have a couple of words for us?
Yes. First of all, I wanted to say the 4 guiding principles that help shape the policies of the People's Party of Canada are freedom, personal responsibility, fairness, and respect. We have less government intrusion in people's lives, and would like to see people empower their own lives, take charge of their own lives with a lot less government intrusion into their own lives. You can check out our party platform at peoplespartyofcanada.ca. You can also check out my local website here, jamestollppc.com.
Okay, thank you, Jim. Giovanni, I see that we have you back. I'm sorry if you're having tech issues staying connected with us. Did you want to make a comment on your plans in terms of climate change? And I think we've lost Giovanni again.
Hello?
Hi, Giovanni.
Hi, sorry, I have technical issues. I was canvassing where I am. Probably Wi-Fi is not that strong. So, yeah, Scott talked about me and about my, nomination. I'd like to let him know that the Liberal Party follows principles when it comes to appointing or nominating candidates. And I'm a Canadian citizen. And, I told you that how much I like this community and that I've been here many times. And it takes just someone who has at heart issues that people are experiencing. And
I'm afraid we've lost Giovanni again.
Oh, she's back.
Giovanni,
If only the federal government kept its commitment on rural broadband and internet and cellular connections, we would have this problem.
that is a good point. Okay, folks, so I'm going to stay on to see if Giovanni can connect and maybe can answer this. But if you do have things to get on with your day, fully understand that. Thank you so much. Next week, I hope that you'll all be with us again when the candidates are able to tell us what 3 things they think are the most important election issues in this federal election, days before we go to the polls.
Thank you. I'll be here next week. Look forward to it.
Thank you, Jim.
You bet.
Thank you, Scott. Bye. Bye, Heather. Thank you. Thank you, Mark. Giovanni, we will continue, if you can hear me, we will continue to record if you are able to connect.
Pamela,
Yes?
I'm just sending the call-in information to Giovanni's campaign manager. So
Okay.
maybe they will try that instead of using internet.
Okay, that is an excellent idea. I'll wait again. I can hold on while we see if she is able to call in. We have one phone caller right now. It just says iPhone. I'm going to unmute it or attempt to. Nope. Giovanni, are you with us?
But I can hear you. I don't know if you hear me.
I can hear you now.
Oh, okay. Thank you. So, yeah, I was saying that Mr. Ashton, I don't know if I did pronounce the name properly. Yeah, he said that the Liberal Party doesn't seem to be a party that takes care of people of Parry Sound-Muskoka because they have nominated me. And that's absolutely not true, because the Liberal Party is a party that, takes care of Canadians. We haven't heard all the issues that people have been going through. And me, I'm someone who's always close to my community, and I'm a Canadian citizen. And when I come here, I see people of Parry Sound-Muskoka as my brothers and sisters, my kids, and I will be working for them. For the question regarding the inflation and how Canada is taking care of Canadians, we don't have any lesson to learn from the Conservatives, because Conservatives have never cut the taxes from the wealthy people. They always do the opposite. When the Liberal government always we have cut taxes to the wealthy people, and the wealthy people have to pay so that other Canadians who are not rich can also live. We've done that, and we will continue to do that.
Okay, that's unfortunate. Oh, okay. I think you're back. Are you back, Giovanni? Giovanni? I think it's Giovanni. Hello? I am going to give it a couple of more minutes. For people who are watching this after the fact, you can find all of our federal election coverage, including last week's town hall and questions that we've asked the candidates about advancing the actions of the Truth and Reconciliation Committee, about climate change, about housing, about, I should look at my list, about support for local businesses and the Parry Sound-Muskoka economy, the housing crisis, which we talked about today, what is the position, their personal and party position on supporting refugees. And next week we are going to ask, what are the 3 most important issues facing the riding today? Giovanni, are you with us? Okay, hoping that next week Giovanni is able to meet with us along with the other candidates and from a place where she gets better internet reception. And an excellent point was made. Broadband and internet is something that our community, our Parry Sound-Muskoka community, really does need to see improved, and we need to see the political will to make that happen. So thank you for joining us today. We will see you next Thursday at noon. Thank you. Bye.